Guys, Waydot uploaded a new video, and this is my favorite video I think that I've ever seen him upload. I like his Iron Man series, but this is my favorite. I almost didn't click on it because, I personally am not a fan of the Reddit videos and stuff, and that's what I thought this was. Nothing against that. If you see this Waydot, I just not my thing, right? But I'm so glad I clicked on this video because this is something that has been on my mind recently a lot, and I'm glad that he came out and said it, and I want to put in my 2 cents and add a little details on what I think. It's called About Toxicity in Runescape, and I would just like to watch with you guys and throw in a few comments here and there.
So I want to make it very clear that the people that I'm going to speak about in this video are a very small but very loud minority.
I would agree with that.
I think these types...
Actually, I would say that my community is, well, smaller than Waydots, but I would say that even that minority I don't even have. Like, I have people who are critical of me or disagree with some of the things that I would say that are similar to what Waydot's going to bring up, but generally they're respectful and we have a discussion about things rather than what he's about to describe.
Of people show up whenever you're talking about a video game that's both older and has a smaller community. I am, of course, talking about people who refuse to hear any sort of criticism about their dearly beloved game. I think this is a really negative way of thinking because when you actually love and care about something and you're actually passionate about something, as these people claim to be, then you're willing to not only point out the positives, but also the glaring issues and the cons that the game may have. You know,
not only that, but if you really love the game, it's your responsibility to, right? Like, you need to be able to criticize something so that it can get better if you want it to survive in the long term, rather than just being sort of numb to the bad things, right? Which it's easy to, right? When you've played a game for 10,000 hours, it's really easy to kind of ignore the flaws, right? Because you kind of adopt it as part of your personality.
And what really sparked this conversation was the other day on my live stream, I mentioned the ability Surge. I think it feels...
Sorry, Waydot, I don't mean to interrupt you again. It's kind of like when somebody is in a toxic relationship with a partner, right? And their partner has all these flaws, right? But they love them. So if you point out one of these flaws, right? They get super defensive and angry, right? When at the end of the day, those flaws might be preventing them from, having a happy relationship, right? It doesn't mean that, you can recognize that somebody's not perfect, or even yourself. You can recognize that yourself isn't perfect, right? Like that you have flaws, but still love yourself or love that other person, whatever, right? But you recognize that it's something that you need to improve on. That's just kind of part of life.
The other day on my live stream, I mentioned the ability Surge. I think it feels kind of janky.
No way.
You compare it to the mage ability Blink in World of Warcraft. When you press...
No way, Surge isn't janky. Waydot? What are you talking about, Waydot? Surge always works exactly as intended. Let me replay that for you. What? In case you didn't see that, that was a bladed dive into a Surge where the Surge just returned me back to where I bladed dive from. Anyways... Surge is janky.
Blink, your character instantly and immediately teleports to an area 10 feet in front of them. Obviously, Surge is a little different because your character isn't actually teleporting, but when you're talking about a directional mobility ability, the game feel is so important. And
absolutely, Waydot, and this is something that I learned when I started to try out new games, right? I learned that, some other games' movements and stuff are a lot more polished, right? And you're absolutely correct. And on that note, he talked about World of Warcraft, right? And I want you guys to keep in mind that Waydot and I, we come from similar situations. A few months ago, we tried out RS3. We made series about it, but we're at heart old school players originally, right? So when you see this criticism, I don't want you to see it as like an old school player shitting on RS3, like kind of the memes and stuff like that, right? We have genuine criticism from the game because we want to see it improve, but it's also from a new player perspective. I have some previous experience with RS3. If you haven't seen my other videos, I used to play old school in like RS3 in like 2016-ish, right? So I have more experience than Waydot, but it's still a newer player experience. So if you have two new players who are telling you this ability feels janky and weird, right? I saw in the comments of this video, he has a bunch of people who are saying like, oh, I've done 10,000 clue scrolls and it's not weird. You just have to kind of get used to it and learn the quirks and blah, 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 right? That's all well and good, right? If you've spent $10,000 on the game and, you know, it's fine with you, but you need to be able to retain new players, and you need to be able to understand that this is not a good thing, right? Again, if you spent that much time on the game and you become accustomed to something, accustomed to some bullshit, that doesn't mean it's not bullshit, right? You're just putting lipstick on a pig per se, right? At the end of the day, if you want to retain new players and if you want the game to survive over the long term, you need to be able to retain new players. And if you have two new players who are telling you that this is janky and weird, then it probably is.
In my opinion, Surge does not feel well polished. Even when it works perfectly as intended, it's mediocre at best. But when I said this, I had a few people in my chat get a little angry.
When it works as intended, it feels good, but it's just inconsistent. That's the issue with Surge. It's really inconsistent.
You know, get a little mad. Which is fine. I'm always down for a conversation, but a conversation needs to have two sides to it. And both sides need to listen to what the other side has to say, and hopefully both sides can walk away having learned something. What I found with these people and their way of thinking is that they don't actually like to listen to what the other side of the conversation has to say. They just blindly have their beliefs about RuneScape, for example, and if your beliefs differ from theirs, well, then they tone you out. I was thinking to myself, why does this happen? And one of the conclusions that I actually came up with is that I think a lot of these people have only ever played RuneScape. You know, a game that's pretty much 20 years old requires an excessively loyal fan base. And while I consider myself one of those extremely loyal players, I also think to a smaller extent, it fosters a toxic sort of tribalistic mentality in a small amount of the player base. The problem with this is, of course, if you do have anything negative to say about the game, instead of thinking about this critically and logically, these people instead take what you're saying as almost a singular attack against who they actually are as a person. I think for me personally, it has something to do with the fact that I did switch to RuneScape 3 from old school RuneScape. My series garnered a fair amount of attention from the RuneScape 3 community, which I'm forever grateful for. But I did have pretty much nothing but positives to say about the game in the beginning. I think this is going to happen to any new player whenever you start playing a new game. You actually have what's called a honeymoon phase with a new game, where everything's amazing and awesome, and all you want to do is play the game all day, every day. We saw something similar happen with the launch of New World, despite having issues, actually.
I don't know anything about New World, but yeah, I had a similar thing. I was kind of skeptical, I would say, going into RS3. But then I learned to like it. And then as I got into the mid game, I was like, well, there's these issues. Like I still like the game, but there's some glaring issues, right?
Completely enamored with New World for like a week or two. Obviously, I'm now 3 months into the game on my Iron Man. I've got a total level of 1850, I've killed some of the bosses, and I'm starting to notice a few things about the game which I dislike. It doesn't mean I'm gonna quit the game. There's things I dislike about every game.
Guys, newsflash. Josh Strife Hayes has a great video about this. But you're allowed to like bad games, right? I'm not saying RuneScape's a bad game, right? But I'm saying like it can have issues and you can still like it, the game. You can still have fun. That doesn't mean that the issues shouldn't be fixed or that you can't acknowledge these issues. You know what I mean? Another game I've really been enjoying recently is Monster Hunter World, right? I have... on Sunday, I always do it like a different game. And Monster Hunter World is what I've been playing on Sundays on stream. And that game is awesome, right? But still, there's some things that kind of feel weird, a little bit janky to me sometimes, right? That doesn't mean I dislike the game, right? It's still a great game, but it's just like you can still have valid criticisms of a good game, you know?
Game I've ever played. I think video games in general can be such an amazing thing, especially in the MMO genre. I've personally used video games in the past to battle things like anxiety and depression when I've been going through tough times in the past. Some of the people that I've met in video games have ended up becoming my actual just best friends. Oftentimes I talk to these people more than I talk to people in real life. Right? However, there is also a potential negative side to video games, both from like a mental health standpoint and also from the fact that you really are just sitting down staring at a screen. And also the anonymous aspect, which a lot of online games foster, where you can essentially say anything you want and nobody knows who you actually are.
I mean, that's not really just games, right? Waydots. That's kind of like, everything. Yeah, you know what? You know what would be fun? Waydots, if you're watching this. we both started kind of getting back into RS3 at the same time. We have a similar amount of, or a similar span of playtime. I think I've played more. I've gotten more progress in the game. But I think we stream at around the same times. One of these days, I think it'd be fun if you wanted to. We could have a live stream, almost like podcast style, where we kind of talk about the things we like and dislike about RuneScape, and kind of an open manner, like the way you're describing, right? Like, no hate in any way, but just talking about sort of the pros and cons of RS3. Based on our experience in the last couple months. I think that'd be pretty good. I think some people, if you guys would like to see that, go at Waydot on Twitter or something like that, and we'll with this video, and we'll get him to watch this. I would like to see what Waydot thinks about my comments, anyways. But yeah, see, I think that would be fun. So let me know if you'd like to do that, Waydots.
You probably wouldn't say these things in real life, but, over the safety of the internet and your anonymous screen name, you do have the confidence to say these things. Anyway, that's basically my rant over. I'm not personally targeting.
Yeah, I mean, he's 100% right? Like, you need to be able to criticize a game you love if you want to see it get better, right? Like, if you don't, and I think that's part of the reason why, if you look through the last few years, Jagex is sort of like, to me, coming from old school, it feels like Jagex almost treats RS3 like the redheaded stepchild that they just don't give a shit about, right? And like, they just try to just throw out these cash grabs and stuff like that. Like, and again, if you've only played one game or the other, you might not realize this, but to me, it always feels like the old school updates and stuff there's a lot more love and care put into them. Right? It feels like they're a lot more polished, right? They're not perfect, right? I'm not saying the old school team is perfect by any means, right? And they've released bad updates, like Winter Todd, I think, is not a very good update, right? Oh, sorry. Oops. I don't think Winter Todd is a very good update, for example, right? But it feels like things are more polished. They put more effort into it, right? A great example, like the Wilderness update that just came out. Super rushed, just super rushed and unpolished, so buggy, right? False promises all over the place, it feels like. Another good example is this new RS3 leagues. Is just another bullshit cash grab, right? And no, I will not be participating in that as long as that's just another cheap half-assed cash grab. I'm not interested, right? That doesn't mean that I don't like the game as a whole. I like a lot of the content, and I'd like to see the game succeed, right? And I'd like to see it succeed for the long term. So that's why these criticisms are important. Anyways, thanks for watching if you made it this far. Go check out Waydots if you haven't already. I'll have his original video will be linked down below. But yeah, and also at Waydots on Twitter or something if you guys want to see us do a collab where we kind of talk about that live. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So anyways, thanks for watching. This is next Iron Man's episode, hopefully in a couple days. I don't know. The grinds are getting longer, but I'm trying to pump them out. Thanks for watching. You guys have a good one.